have you ever been asked to calm down?
Yes, and it makes me so mad.
Right. And then have you ever asked your child to calm down?
Yes.
Yes, we all have. So everything that we're doing is around never having to ask that question again, because that you've already failed if that's where you've gotten. The motor learning theory model tells us that 1,000 repetitions is necessary for something to become cognitive. So how many times do you need to practice breathing in a green state before you could ever try to use it in a red state? We're gonna do a pop quiz. Is a calm corner a place you can send a child to?
Yes.
No.
No.
They have to go on their own.
Welcome to Rethink Time, the podcast brought to you by Time Timer. We'll explore how we teach, support, and experience time in the classroom, in therapy spaces, and in everyday life. Time is something that everybody has to navigate, whether you're a teacher or you're a parent or you're just somebody that struggles managing time yourself. We're going to be interviewing experts in the fields of education and neurodiversity to share real life strategies that you can use every day. And that way, time feels more understood to everyone in your life. Hi, welcome to this episode of Rethink Time. I'm Kristen Barberchek, and I'll be your host today. We're talking to Sarah Habib, founder of Calm Caterpillar. It's a research-informed company that brings mindfulness to students in the classroom as well as at home. I think your products are amazing. They're very cool. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about some like mindfulness in children and how that plays out in the home and in the school environment. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Can you, in your own words, kind of talk a little bit about Calm Caterpillar and like what your business does and the products that you create?
Yeah, so Calm Caterpillar really was started around the idea that not only do kids, but parents and educators need help in implementing mindfulness, whether it's in the classroom or it's at home. So often we see, right, behavior is really a form of communication. So when we see kids having big feelings or what we would call as, like a behavioral outburst, so often the response from parents or educators, it's not the right one. And one of the things that we know at Calm Caterpillar is that when we can implement mindfulness in a home or a classroom, it actually reduces those behavioral disruptions, right? It's a prevention tool. And so we really come at it as how can we give as many people, parents, kids, caregivers, and teachers, the skills to manage those big feelings before they become that behavioral issue.
Which is such a great like full circle approach to it. You're not just managing one issue. It's like it's a holistic solution.
100%. I started my career focusing on writing curriculum for classrooms on mindfulness. And so it was really single-sided. It was like a narrow viewpoint into it. And during COVID, actually, when we were providing a mindfulness and movement program to 2,000 kids virtually every day, and then I was seeing things that was going on in people's homes, I was like, wow, we really forgot about what happens when kids leave school.
Right.
And so COVID was really the inspiration for what Calm Caterpillar is today, in the sense that I said, I can't just do this in a school anymore. And so that's why Calm Caterpillar was created. And so we started to make tools. Sometimes I refer to them as toys, but they are in fact tools that kids use to teach them mindfulness and to teach their caregivers mindfulness.
So what I like so much about your product line is it takes something that's very internalized that the child is dealing with and kind of externalizes it, which Time Timer has a very similar approach, right? Like it's something like time causes a stress and anxiety internally that people don't get to see. But then once you externalize it, you kind of create you get it out of the brain. You like lessen the cognitive load so that people can actually like manage it, right? So talk to me a little bit about like how you decided to turn this into a product? Like what was your kind of approach to
Sure. I think what you just described is the same thing as naming a feeling, right? So like if you can visually see the time as the way you can with a time timer, you can name a feeling, you can then handle that feeling in a different way. So for us, I think it was really that it had to be fun, right?
Yeah.
I think you try to make your clocks fun. I think when we think about breathing, which is a really nebulous concept for 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, what is breathing? I don't know how often you're around little people, but when I say
a lot, I have 2.
When I say take a breath to like a 3-year-old, this is what they do. Well, that is not a deep breath that's going to change behavior or reset your body, right? So we had to say we want to make breathing super cool, super fun, super cuddly for both girls and boys, right? And so that was really the inspiration for our products is we just wanted to make breathing come to life in this way that kids benefited from and then parents could see.
So that you pulled me right into like what I was saying. Like, how do you describe mindfulness and breathing to a 3-year-old? Like, I have a 3-year-old myself and an 18-month-old. And my 3-year-old's in the world of tantrums right now. He's loving his big feelings, right?
Yeah.
So, and I would have no idea how to start talking to him about how to be mindful and having mindfulness.
Well, this is actually how I do it. Have you ever been asked to calm down?
Yes, and it makes me so mad.
Right. And then have you ever asked your child to calm down?
Yes.
Yes,
and
we all have. I have a 5-year-old. I've been doing this in classrooms. I've done it before. Whenever I ask people that question, like how I ever start all trainings I lead, I always start with, how do you feel when somebody asks you to calm down? And I want you to be like, have you done that to kids? And everyone is like, yeah, I have. So everything that we're doing is around never having to ask that question again, because that you've already failed if that's where you've gotten. So I teach breathing, mindfulness. I use that word really interchangeably, so bear with me. They mean the same thing to me. I use that as a technique to kids about this just fun activity we teach them. So in school or at home, for example, buzzing breath or lion's breath. These are 2 breathing techniques we start with kids who are really young. Because why? They're animals. They know what the animals are. They know the sounds the animals make, and it's fun. Do you think, you said you had a 3-year-old son?
I have a 3-year-old son and an 18-month-old son.
Okay, so your 3-year-old son, do you think he ever would be willing to pretend to be a lion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So you can already do, when you go home, I want you to go home from this and you're going to teach him lion's breath. We're going to do it right now. So I want you to put your hands up like this, like paws. Okay, so these are your paws. Okay. So we're going to do lion's breath. And this is how you teach little kids to start deep breathing. You're going to take in a big breath in through your nose, and then we're going to roar out together. Okay. Ready? But you have to have your paws up or it doesn't count. Ready? So roar. So do you think your 3-year-old son would do that with you?
Yes.
Yes,
it's
right?
Play.
It's play. So the way we teach breathing to kids is 100% through play. We're going to do another one. It's called buzzing breath. And we have products that go with all of these. So buzzing breath is a really important breathing technique because it actually tells your vagus nerve to stop producing cortisol. So one, when we teach little kids how to do buzzing breath, I'm first like, can you flap your wings like a bee? Everyone can flap their wings. Great. I've just got their attention. The next thing I do is I make the buzzing noise. Bzzz, and you hear the vibration, right? That vibration is literally helping my vagus nerve stop producing cortisol. So we teach kids in what we call a green state to do all of these different breathing techniques. A lot of them have to do with animals. Some of them don't. I'm going to teach you one right now that is my personal favorite and really is like the foundation of our company. Yet oddly enough, there's no product associated with this one because we haven't figured out how yet to do it. It's called hand breathing. Okay. So if you take your hand just like this, and you put your finger at the bottom of your palm.
Okay, and so just for anyone that's listening just on audio, it's holding out 5 fingers flat out.
Exactly.
And your palm out.
So you take your hand and you put your finger at the bottom of your palm. Okay. Trace up, breathe in. Trace down, breathe out.
So what we're doing is we're tracing every finger.
And so we just took 5 deep breaths. The reason I really like hand breathing is you were asking, how do you teach a child to do deep breathing mindfulness? There's something about the length of inhale and the length of the exhale. When you're using your hand and you're tracing, it gives you that time to increase your inhale and your exhale. Because again, we don't want kids doing that. Right. Because that is not going to create that physiological change, right? What is breathing? Breathing is a vasodilator, right? So it actually increases the size of our veins when we take a deep breath. But when you do that nasally thing I just did, you're not getting the benefits of that vasodilation. When you take 5 deep breaths, you literally change the way your body feels on a physiological level.
So when you say, because you mentioned that you teach these strategies when they're in green state. So explain what green state is.
Meaning, it's the same thing as I need you to calm down. If you're in a state where somebody would say that to you, it's not an appropriate time to learn a breathing technique. We only teach breathing techniques when kids are calm, happy, excited, enthusiastic. Any of those acronyms, or I mean, whatever word that I can't come up with that's not an acronym. We don't do it when they're angry, upset, because that child's already in a heightened emotional state. Is that when you learn something? No. There's something called the motor learning theory model. The motor learning theory model tells us that 1,000 repetitions is necessary for something to become cognitive. So how many times do you need to practice breathing in a green state before you could ever try to use it in a red state? 1,000 times. So when I talk to parents about like, do you really want to like implement this in your life? I'm like, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of time. It in the day, right? It's like the days are, in this one, the days are short and the time is long. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the opposite of whatever parents always say. You have to do it every day for 30, 60, 90 days to begin to see a behavioral change. I think a lot of people, where rubber meets the road for them with mindfulness, is that they try it once and it didn't do anything.
Right.
Well, yeah, of course it didn't do anything. You need to practice it 1,000 times for it to become useful when a child is in a yellow or a red state. We talk about this in school a lot. Are you familiar with the term calm corner?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of, I would say,
but explain it anyways in case
for sure.
anyone listens.
I would say most schools all across the country, public or private, in preschool, kindergarten, first, second grade, have a calm corner in their classroom. It's generally, a part of state requirements in a public school. So we should expect to see it in most classrooms. It is a safe space for kids to practice mindfulness, to have big feelings, to take a break from whatever's bothering them. We're going to do a pop quiz. Are you ready for my pop quiz? Okay, so is a calm corner a place you can send a child to?
Yes.
No. See, this.
They got to go on their own.
They have to go on their own. And this is where calm corners fail out in the world.
Yeah.
And so often in schools, they're being used incorrectly in this way. A calm corner is not punitive. If you force a child to have a timeout or some sort of like, you must go to the calm corner, it loses all of its magic. And the whole point of a calm corner, whether it's in a home or in a school, is that it is a safe space that a kid elects to go to. You can never force a child into a calm corner. A lot of our work is on helping teachers implement calm corners in a better way in their classroom, because not everyone uses a calm corner in the way in which they were intended. So, and by the way, everyone can have one at home.
Right.
You don't need a physical corner. You don't need anything special. You could put a blanket and a pillow and tell your kids, this is the place where we're going to practice big feelings. But how would they know that? Because you're going to model the behavior. This is my other favorite like quiz that I ask teachers all the time. I'm sorry, I'm really putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I always ask a teacher, have you ever sat in your calm corner when you've gotten upset? Because as a parent or as a teacher, do you think you ever get upset during the day with your kids?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So what do you do in those moments? Because that's the magic. If you as a parent, when you're upset and frustrated, could go sit down in the calm corner in your home and model a breathing technique to change the way you feel, not only have you created the environment for your kid to be able to do that on their own, you're now modeling it. And the same thing applies in a classroom setting. I really work with teachers to say, next time you're frustrated, use this as an amazing opportunity to go sit in the thing you want them to use when they're upset, right?
Yeah.
There's this vulnerability that's required to do it. And I think a lot of people struggle to do it because like they don't want to sit in a calm corner, because maybe you want to walk out of the room or you want to go outside, whatever it is you do to regulate. But what I'm always asking parents, caregivers, and educators to do is to find it within themselves to go sit in that calm corner and use a breathing technique, use one of our products in your calm corner and change the way you feel. Because if you're not going to model that for your kids, how are they ever going to learn it?
Right. Well, and that was going to be my next question is how do you get them to understand that that's what they need to do? So you just answered that question of like modeling it would be so important. And I mean, on one hand, it is a vulnerable thing. You almost feel like you're treating yourself like a child.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also sounds kind of luxurious. Like to have a spot that I can go when I'm frustrated.
100%.
Like, that actually sounds nice.
Yeah. And we all benefit from that.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing when I think about mindfulness and implementing it into your day. Like, do you have a routine as a family, whether it's at breakfast, at dinner, or at bedtime, where you could find 1 minute to implement two of those breathing techniques I just showed you, because they don't take very long. But if you don't start practicing them every day, by the way, with my own daughter, I think I started this around 18 months. So I really don't think any age is too young, where we have a tool called Bloomy. It's a flower and candle. So like we'll do it imaginary. Grab a flower in one hand, candle in the other. You're going to smell your flower and then you're going to blow out your candle. So we have a fidget tool that does that. We call it Bloomy. I started that with her when she was 18 months. And I mean, now I think she finds me annoying, but she's 5. But she was able to grasp that concept really early on, because the earlier you start this, the more repetitions you get in. And then this way, when, stress and challenges become harder as they age, they have these skills for the rest of their life. Because we as adults need to remember to breathe. Right. How often do you catch yourself holding your breath and that doesn't help you? No. how often do you find yourself, wow, I really need to be able to change the way I feel right now. I wonder if taking a deep breath, and I knew this on my own, would I do that? And if you have that skill in such a solid way, by the time you hit middle school, high school, adulthood, you're really set up for success in a way that I feel like I wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I don't know that I feel that I ever learned the self-regulation skills until I started working at Time Timer and started reading about them. But I think that you touch on so let me ask you this. So you said you started working with your daughter 18 months and now she actually might find it annoying or whatever. But do you see her using it in those high stress moments?
100%. And that's why I laugh that she finds me annoying.
Yeah.
But she knows better than most 5-year-olds that she can change the way she feels with deep breaths. And we were at the doctor the other day and there was the possibility of a shot. And, not all kids like shots. Right. And I just saw her sitting in the sitting at that doctor's table. And she just kept taking deep breath after deep breath, trying to, have control over herself in a moment where she felt really scared because she hates shots and she didn't want to have to get one.
Yeah.
Luckily, we didn't have to get one. So it all worked out for both of us. Normally, my husband does the shots and I was like, oh, I was not ready for it.
Yeah.
But, it all worked out.
Oh, I think that's so impressive that you could start that young. And people often ask us about Time Timer, when can you start? And that's something that we've heard, you can start as early as 18 months and they might not get it right away. But the more you introduce it to them when they're young, the more they the quicker they grasp it and they start to understand it.
100%. I also think we have this weird thing in society where we think 18 months, they're not capable.
Yeah.
And 18-month-olds are wildly capable.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, when it comes to early childhood development, I always think about that. With my daughter, I'm always oh, she's capable of everything. And I don't ever want to think she's not ready for something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I want to give her the space because when we give kids the space to get there, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it is impressive when you let them explore on their own.
Yeah.
They get it so much further than
100%.
what we think. So what kind of changes can you expect to see in the kids once you start teaching these techniques?
For sure. So when we think about breathing on a physiological level, I'm going to talk about specifically kids in high trauma situations because a lot of the people,
I was going to ask about that, so I'm glad you're jumping into it.
A lot of the people that I started my work with and our work still really revolves around are kids really, who have something that's called a high ACE score. Are you familiar with the term adverse childhood experiences? So adverse childhood experiences is a survey mechanism. It's a score mechanism that was developed by, you should fact check this, but it was developed in California, I think out of Kaiser Permanente. It was the largest longitudinal study ever conducted in the history of the United States. And it tracked how things that happened in your childhood led to negative health outcomes.
Interesting.
In your adult. And if you have an ACE score of 3 or more, this you don't have to fact check. I know this one for sure. Yeah. If you have an ACE score of 3 or higher, it equates to 10 years off your lifespan.
Wow.
There's actually an amazing organization here in Cincinnati called Joining Forces for Children. I used to be the early childhood lead. And it's out of Children's Hospital. And it's a coalition of early childhood organizations that are working to reduce the impact of ACEs here in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati, the city of Cincinnati, has a high childhood poverty rate. And if we think about the ACE score of kids in the city of Cincinnati, it's higher than we'd like it to be. So Joining Forces for Children is really trying to say, this is a community action problem. What can we do to do it? 2 different ways you can help combat the effect of ACEs. Mm-hmm. One is through a trusted adult. The other is through protective factors, right? Trusted adult being a protective factor. But the second being teaching kids mindfulness to lower the rates of their cortisol is a protective factor for kids who have a high ACE score. Again, an adverse childhood experience could be living with an alcoholic, living with having an incarcerated parent, food insecurity, home insecurity, smoking, abuse, sexual assault. There are these different things that you would get a score for, and that's how it's calculated. Okay. And so it's this survey that is conducted, and you really begin to understand, wow, this kid's had a lot of trauma in their life. And so if we're going to give them a skill, and if we can start it as young as 3 years old, which is what we mostly do in a public school setting, we're going to help build up those protective factors. Mm-hmm. So when you ask me, what am I going to see differently in a kid? Sometimes you might not see a behavioral change in that year, but in the term of their life, do I believe if they adopt mindfulness that 10-year deficit on their lifespan can change? Yes, it can.
Wow.
And so that's really the end game of what it is, like of what mindfulness can do for schools.
Right.
So there's a nonprofit that I started before before Calm Caterpillar called Mission to Move, and that's really what Calm Caterpillar came out of.
Okay.
And that still exists in Cincinnati public schools today. And that's what provides movement and mindfulness to every single CPS preschooler. And that's really where we've been able to do the research. Both the University of Cincinnati and the University of Illinois have conducted studies on our program that show when these programs are in a classroom, there is an increase in prosocial skills based off of the DECA, which is a early childhood assessment tool, and a decrease in disruptions. We've also done hair samples out of the University of Illinois where they were actually testing cortisol levels of preschool kids to determine, are we truly making an impact? And what we know is that we are. It's interesting that, do you see it in day-to-day behavior with all kids? No.
Yeah.
Do you see it in the long term? Yes. And for a good chunk of kids in the middle, you'll notice behavioral changes pretty quickly.
I was going to say, so are you trying to tell me that this will not end my tantrums at home?
I am trying to say that because I don't think there's no silver bullet,
right.
Because there's so, like, unless I meet a child and can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like
well,
it
and
works
like you
for
said, it's
most
like
kids. I can't say it's going to work for all kids, right?
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time working with kids on the spectrum. So I wrote a book with Tara Phillips, who runs a program called Autism Little Learners. It's called The Mindfulness Guide for Neurodivergent Learners. And in that book, we really talk about how, especially for kids on the spectrum, it's so important to implement mindfulness. But that's another thing where you're not going to necessarily see that behavior change for a really long time, but it is going, when you first of all look at behavior as a form of communication, changes everything.
Yeah.
Like, my child is acting out on the spectrum, not on the spectrum. It means a need is unmet. Kids don't just act out to act out, right? They're acting out because something is not correct inside. And so when
they can't name it. Usually.
They can't name it, exactly. So that unmet need is so important to think about, because whether it is kids on the spectrum or not, you just got to give it the time for them to be able to articulate what it is. And mindfulness is going to help get them there.
So how do you start to implement these into the schools, for your organization specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, you talked a little bit about the preschool organizations and stuff like that, but how do you spread the word and get out there?
Sure. So we have a robust Instagram that talks a lot about how to implement mindfulness, predominantly at home, actually. And that's why I think consumers buy our products, because they engage with our social media content. I think a lot of parents see the term sensory seeker. I don't know if you've heard that term. It's funny, on Instagram and TikTok, there's always this thing is my sensory seeker autistic? People also have this fear of autism, I think, that drives a lot of viral content on Instagram. I hate that, for the record, that there's this fear that is driving that. But I do see that people want to understand what the behavior is telling them. What is this communication, and is there something I can do to help it? And so I think that's why parents find us. Schools find us because they're looking for tools to improve their Calm Corners, right? So we sell Calm Corner kits. We sell training for Calm Corners. We go in and we'll train all the educators on how to actually better implement your Calm Corner and then use our tools. We have weighted soft plush. We have breathing fidgets. And all of these things really help teachers use breathing in the classroom in a better way. I actually spoke at Toy Fair this year on the future of mesh toys and for those that don't know, mesh toy is a mental, emotional, social health toy. It's kind of like the new STEM toy, if you will. And we were talking a lot about how parents today, educators today, the number one thing that they're thinking about is a child's mental health. And
it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but we weren't there before.
Right.
But we're also there because I think mental health for a lot of adolescents is bad, right? And so I do think it's a reaction, but it's a positive one. And that schools, like they've never been before, are much more aware of kids' mental health. And same thing for parents. And so that really, I think, is the driving force behind why people look for these products.
Well, can you speak a little bit about your understanding, at least, of like how society has changed in that way? I mean, obviously, I feel like we've talked about it already a little bit, is like compared to like when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like this was not a topic of conversation at all.
100%. And I also think like my own parents would never go to therapy. I mean, I have been in therapy. I'm 37. I've been in therapy since I was, I think, on and off since I was 18. I also think that, and like, I think that's another thing. Yeah. How has society changed? Like I just said that right now, and like absolutely nothing of it. Like I love therapy. I think therapy is great. And I think people are much more willing. Millennials, I'm going to be generalist here.
Okay.
I think millennials are okay with therapy.
Yeah.
And I think millennials are becoming the primary parents of kids right now. And I think they are okay with their kids being in therapy. They're okay with us talking about feelings. And I do think there has been a massive push from an educational standpoint to really change the social emotional standards we require that kids learn. And it's really important. I mean, I got to shout out Cincinnati Public Schools. Cincinnati Public Schools does an amazing job in their preschool program of focusing on SEL standards.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's the world in which we're headed. If you think about AI and what that's going to do to education, you know, at a certain point, schools really are going to help you become a good person more than anything else. So mental health needs to be at the forefront of that.
Well, and what I love about what your mission is for your organization is that the mental health responsibility for kids isn't just on the schools. It isn't just on the parents. It's on everyone, right? Like,
yeah, no, it's a 360 degree, and you can't do one without the other. And that was like, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but that's what I tried to do first. And I realized that wasn't enough.
So I mean, you talked about how you kind of teach the teachers to model it and you teach the adults to model it. Does your organization do much to teach even like the teachers and parents to do it on their own?
100%. So one, we talk about when you're doing it with your kids, you're doing it for yourself, and that helps reduce teacher burnout. We have a parent class that we actually just give away for free. Like on our website, there's a free parent class where you can watch this like 18-minute long video about how to implement a calm corner in your house.
That's awesome.
5 breathing techniques and what to do. So if you never spent a cent with us, you could walk away with literally a calm corner and how to. We cover the motor learning theory model. We talk all about that because I believe like deep inside my soul that if every single person, if every caregiver, parent, and educator like watched this video one time and then implemented just a fraction of it,
right,
people would be nicer to each other. Like kids would have the capacity to handle that. And so for us, we really want to help schools. We view it as a trickle down. So if you're in a classroom and a teacher teaches the students a breathing technique, we always encourage the teachers to talk about having the kids teach their families.
Oh, that's fun.
And so it's like, how can you get the breathing technique to go from the classroom to home through the child? We want the child to become the educator. We also do this program in certain schools where we actually text the parents or the caregivers. So we did this we started this at Frederick Douglass, and then we do this in all of Cincinnati Public School preschools. They sent home like a mini calm corner kit from us, like which includes a breathing fidget and a poster so that they can like, you know, set up a calm corner in their house. And then we text the parents twice a week. And we text them things like, do you think it's a good idea to ask your child to calm down if they're angry? Because parents need that reminder.
Do they respond?
Yeah, they can respond back to us. Yeah. We have like a lot of like yes, no questions. So we'll ask questions like that. We'll engage with them. And we do that program all over the country. So it's a really effective way because parents don't want to read their emails.
Right.
Like texting is where it's at. So that's why we started that program. And so we really focus in on how we can change and influence caregivers just through these text messages twice a week. But we also, with schools, they always send home, like they email out our free parenting class. We send home posters to kids whenever like schools sign up for our project, for our products. We work with this great company called Effective School Solutions. They're based in New Jersey, and they provide the mental health services, meaning they put like the school counselors into schools in states like all over the Northeast, Texas and California. And so they actually buy what they call a reset kit, and then they put them into the classrooms of the schools that they work of our tools. And they also use our free parenting class, and they send it out to all those people like who are in that, you know what I'm saying, like the families in those schools. So when I think about why it works is we have to be willing to give away some of it for free, because you really want to get caregivers on board with this idea that mindfulness is key to their family unit.
Well, and they have to learn it for themselves a lot, because a lot of times they weren't taught. So it's
right. They have a high A score themselves, right?
Exactly.
The amount of people who have a high A score in this country, it's a lot. I can't quantify it. We should look it up and and answer that question later. But I do think all humans benefit from learning to do mindfulness and learning to do lion's breath, buzzing breath, and hand breathing the way kids do. No reason it doesn't work for adults too.
We should all just be walking around buzzing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So what are the differences, like we talked about, like educating in the classroom and educating at home, but what are the differences that like, for example, like a lot of kids, we hear this from parents all the time, like they go to school or they go to daycare, they go somewhere else and they're like perfectly well behaved, and then they come home and all that like pressure and stress just like unleashes. So what are some of the differences between the school and the home environment that you see in the behavior and the stress level of the kids?
Yeah. So one, sometimes for kids, like home is like one big calm corner, and it's like the only place where they feel safe enough to have those feelings, right? I think a lot of what you just described, right, is when a kid feels that they're not safe at school to share like anger, frustration, right? Missing caregivers, right? And so that all bottles up and it explodes at home. I've seen this with my own daughter. And she loves her teachers. She's in a Montessori classroom, so she's had the same teachers for 2 years now, and she'll still have them for one more year. But still, some days she comes home and you can tell something must have happened at school. She brushed off the feeling at school, and then when she comes home, it all comes out. In those moments, the only thing I feel a caregiver can do is create space for those feelings. And I think the real reason comes down to how a child feels. And right, I think a lot of kids on the spectrum and off the spectrum, they mask at school, right? They don't cry when maybe they would otherwise, right? They put on that brave face. They don't want to show their true vulnerable self that they only save for those they love the most.
Yeah. And we do it as adults too, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it makes a lot of sense that happens, but it is, I feel, it makes the importance of what you're doing by teaching in the classroom and teaching at home that much more important.
Yeah, and that brings up something for me. One of the things we also talk about, and why we always try to get schools not only to put calm corners in their classrooms, but then send home to families, is consistency. If I'm 4 years old and I go to preschool and I see a calm corner in the classroom, and then I go home and I have that same exact calm corner at home, do you think it makes it easier for me to use it?
Probably,
yeah, it does. And so we really try thinking about those 360 degrees. How can you send home with the students some piece that's also in the classroom to really give that safety and security? Because then also when they see it at home and then they see it at school, it helps create that safety.
Yeah. And it's familiar then too.
100%.
So how do you like what's one small thing that, I guess for parents, like the one small thing is go watch the video, right?
Yeah. Or do buzzing breath, because we just taught you that, or lion's breath. Pick one breathing technique and add it into your bedtime routine. Add it into your breakfast. Pick one time. If you drive your kids to school, do it on the way to school, right? Because it's good for you too, right?
Right.
And so if like morning is a rush time, pick a time though where you feel like you can actually add it on. Because I know some people getting out the door in the morning can be really stressful. So think about whatever time that works for you and say, for the next 7 days, I'm going to do it every day.
Yeah.
And just
see what happens.
See what happens. Take stock of everybody. I think it's committing to 90 seconds a day, if you will. Yeah.
And it seems to me like at bedtime would just be such an easy way to do it too. It just because you're
100%.
calming your body down right before sleep.
100%.
And it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about like transitions, because that's somewhere like Time Timer plays a pretty significant role of that, like going from one activity to the other. It's such a high stress moment for so many. So talk about how these breathing techniques and mindfulness can aid in that transition.
Yeah, I'm going to first do it through like a neurodivergent lens, and then I'll do it through a neurotypical. So we talk a lot about in a neurodivergent lens. One, visual timers, so important for transitions for all kids, but specifically with kids on the spectrum, I find that it's really helpful so that they can visualize, hey, this is how much minutes I have left until I have to move on. One of the things that we talk about is like habit stacking. So can you pair a breathing technique with the end of a transition as a way to move between things? It's a really effective way to incorporate mindfulness into the day and also aid kids during a transition.
Yeah.
So for example, like if the timer goes off and like recess is up and you got to come back in, can you ask everyone to become a bee, get in line, doing buzzing breath on their way in? And does that aid?
That actually sounds fun.
Right. And it makes the transition easier. And so that really does apply to both neurotypical and neurodivergent kids. But it's so important to think about how you can aid transitions. And mindfulness is a really easy tool to help you do that.
I just think it's so amazing that like starting this young and moving that into older kids, and those transitions don't get any easier as we age, right? So it's like that's
this morning my alarm went off and I was like, oh, it's a transition,
Yeah.
but I'm not ready for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then that's a great time to start your breathing exercises.
Yeah. I don't always practice what I preach.
Well, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of, I think, this struggle with like, and a lot of these questions I'm asking you are like kind of derived from that, because it's like, one, as adults that did not grow up, did not start at 18 months learning these things, trying to teach adults, it's like teach an old dog new tricks. It's like, it's hard, especially when you yourself are in that moment of dysregulation. Like, how do you make it work? And then to teach that and model that for a child, it's like, it's not like you said, I love what you said, like it's not easy.
Yeah,
it's not an
it's
easy
not.
transition,
No.
but the benefits are so great. So,
and what's funny when you just said the word easy, mindfulness, like in a vacuum, is easy and yet hard. The mindfulness I'm talking about for kids is a lot easier than the mindfulness I think a lot of adults aspire to, right? Which is like truly like focusing only on your breath, like not allowing intrusive thoughts. Like that's not what we're asking of kids, right? We're asking a much lower bar. But I say that as in doing lion's breath or buzzing breath with a kid, that's actually pretty easy. The hard part is doing it all the time so that then they have the skill to practice. And so when people ask me like, is mindfulness easy with kids? I actually think it is. It's whether or not the adult is willing to commit to create the space to do it all the time. Because if you're not going to do it all the time, it's really not worth your time.
right. That makes sense. What about like some of those moments where like you're in the family and you are feeling rushed, like getting out the door and that kind of stuff? Like, I guess like how do you get through that moment in the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think visual timers, one, are really helpful. I also find that a lot of families who use, it's like a what do I need to get out the door chart, if you will.
Like a visual.
A visual chart. We talk a lot about how visual charts are really important, whether it's like get your backpack, depending on the age of the kid, like what their skill and their capability level is. Like, is it packing their own water bottle? All kids have water bottles everywhere they go these days, right? So do they pack that themselves? Or are you packing it? What are you visually showing them that they need to get out the door? I mean, this is an area of my own life that, I only have one child and we have two adults at home. So sometimes it's just easier for one of us to, do it with her or do it for her. And we always like talk about how like we should just let her do it. But it goes back to that morning rush when two people have to get out the door for an 8:30 meeting and she's got to be at school, between 8 and 8:15. Sometimes it is easier for the parent to do it, but that's not always better in the long run.
Right.
I'm not sure I answered your question, but.
Well, I mean, it's relatable.
Yeah.
And it's just hard because also the 3.5-year-old and the 18-month-old in my house want to do everything themselves.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean,
like,
and that's
like,
great,
I'd love to
right?
let you do it yourself, but you take 20 minutes.
Yeah, and like we don't always have that.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
And we have like 30 visual timers in our house. So.
I'm sure you do.
So like, I think what we're talking about is a lot of emotional regulation, and I'd love to. Do you have like other strategies in addition to the breathing and stuff? Or actually, let's like back up a little bit. Talk to me like even more literal about like how does like the calm caterpillar itself work?
Oh, like Call Me the Caterpillar?
Yeah, like Call Me the Caterpillar.
Okay, so Call Me is a lightly weighted soft plush. I'm sorry that I don't have it with me. I really should have brought my products with me, but here we are.
That's okay. We'll link to them.
So Call Me the Caterpillar goes around your neck. It's lightly weighted and has an inner elastic core. That's what makes Call Me really different from other soft plush. And the inner elastic core is modeled after a plastic breathing ball. I'm sure you've seen them.
Yep.
They're these spheres that you just open up. So what we did is we made it so you can stretch Call Me in and out. So it's this really cute caterpillar. It's around your neck, or you can stretch it like this. And then we worked with David Kaiser, who's from Cincinnati. He wrote the Fiona musical and the Poop song. And he made all this amazing music for us. So, which is on Spotify or on our website, Apple Music, YouTube. And all of those songs also help kids learn how to take deep breaths with our soft plush. Then we have weighted, like very heavily weighted soft plush. We have this dragonfly that we call Flutter, and Flutter is 3 pounds, which is for deep pressure sensory input, because I think you were about to get to like different strategies beyond breathing. Flutter is that different strategy. Sometimes kids benefit from something that's heavily weighted to help their nervous system reset. When you provide that deep pressure input, it tells your nervous system that you're okay, right? Sometimes our body just needs help. Like it's like a 404 error on your computer, right? Like you just need a little bit of help, and deep pressure can do that. So Flutter really does that for a lot of kids. And then we have these breathing fidget tools, and it comes in, like, I call 3 different flavors. It comes in flower and candle, lion's breath, and buzzing breath. And that is a fidget component. So you can like send it back and forth. And it also teaches a breathing technique that you can hold. And we really made that directly from teacher feedback, because flower and candle, which to me sounds like the easiest breathing technique to teach to any kids, because does your 18-month-old know how to blow out a candle or have seen people do that? Yeah. Have they smelled a flower?
Yeah.
Right. So they can do flower.
Right.
They can do flower and candle breathing. So it really is an accessible tool. But we were getting feedback from these teachers who were like, they actually put a flower and a candle together and were having kids hold them, because some kids still really need that tactile feel. So that's why we made Bloomy, was because it's this thing you hold. It has a flower on one end. You smell the flower, you push it through, and a flame pops up the other, and you blow it out. And so it took what was a visual or an audio thing for kids, and it made it really tactile, which a lot of kids benefit from. And so that is also combining fidget with breathing, which I think for some kids is really important. So it's not just about the mindfulness always. It can be either, again, that deep pressure, that weight, or some sort of fidget activity. In the program we run in Cincinnati Public Schools, I talk a lot about how movement should always become before mindfulness. And if you're going to ask a child to practice mindfulness, but you don't let them move their body, that's also really hard.
Right.
So I think movement is a key strategy in helping kids be mindful.
That's so interesting, because like that is like something like all the kids, they want to move, they want to get it out. So what kind of movement are you talking though? Like,
so we use a really specific movement type in Mission to Move. It's a neurological based movement. It's from a program called Z Health, and it really says, I want to think about my body and movement through neural pathways, right? So like our brain using its neural pathways tells like my hand to move right now. And so sometimes like that can become clunky, if you will, right? Like the neural receptors aren't receiving the signal in the way that they want. Sometimes, for example, like ADHD or ADD can actually look like sensory mismatch, right? Meaning your vestibular or your proprioceptive system aren't receiving inputs in the same way. And so that movement really looks like things like ankle tilts, hip circles, knee circles, wrist movements. It's really basic movement that is just warming up your brain. Wow. So it's not around like jumping jacks or other things like that. It is very simple movements. David Kaiser wrote us a song for that. It's called Body Boogie. It's so fun. I sing in it, so you should be afraid of that. But it's a great song, and it really just walks kids through what are these really simple movements in a fun way, just to help their brain move their body better, increase that proprioception.
I love how much science you guys put behind your program.
Yeah.
Like, it is like so intentional. It's not just burning energy movement. Like it is incredibly intentional, and I think that is amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
I think that's something we can relate to with Time Timer, because every design decision that we've made on it has been very intentional for that regard. But like it's hard to find other products that put that much thought into it, and I think that's just makes it such a more effective solution.
Yeah.
So if I'm I want to hear your answer to this from a teacher's perspective and a parent's perspective. But if I am wanting to start this process of teaching mindfulness to my child or to my students, and you just described so many different like options, how do you know where to start? How do you know what the kid needs?
That's a great question. I think I'll help you out. Yeah. So if your kid is somebody who maybe likes to sit in color for long periods of time, is somebody who you would say, oh, like that kid moves a lot, but isn't like running circles around in a certain place, you could probably start with hand breathing. Start there, pick that one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just say, these are the characteristics of kids, and this is the breathing technique I would start with.
Okay.
If you have a kid who's really rambunctious and struggles to sit, I would start with lion's breath. And I would have it be a lion's breath where you're on the floor crawling around. Like become a lion. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I would start with buzzing breath after that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I always say just start with a breathing technique.
Yeah.
You know? Also, start with our products. I'll plug those right now, right? Our breathing fidgets are a great place to start. Bloomy, Rory Jr., Buzzy. All of those help you teach your kid a breathing technique if you feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, like, I'm just the biggest proponent of everyone doing this, so you don't have to buy our products to do this, right? Like, we've literally just told you, here are these different techniques.
Right.
I like hand breathing because no matter where you are in the world, you have your hands with you. So this is for a neurotypical child who is able-bodied and can use their hands. But I love that. We use this mantra in our program called I have the power to change the way I feel with my hands and my breath. And I think when kids really start to internalize that, hand breathing is like the place to start. But the reason I mentioned for kids who are really rambunctious, maybe I would start with lion's breath just because this one requires you to have a little bit more focus.
Right.
And so you want to start wherever your kid's at.
Right.
Like we don't ever prescribe what order you should teach these breathing techniques. We always say the technique will pick the child, as in they will be interested enough to do it. And that's where you should start. And whatever one they want to do that for as long as they'll do it until you feel like you got to switch it up, right? Because again, that motor learning theory model tells us like 1,000 repetitions. So pick a time of day that you're going to try to do it every day and pick one breathing technique. And that's all it is.
And what do you do? Do you see this where students are reluctant to do it?
The older we get, they are. When we're talking 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, no, they're not gonna. They all want to be a lion or a bee. Like we don't. I mean, I'm in classrooms all the time, and they don't even know me. Like I'm a stranger. I'll walk in and they'll do that with me, just because it's fun. I find once kids hit 3rd grade, that's when you start to see this switch that the techniques that I'm talking about not really effective anymore. You know, a lot of people ask us, I need products for middle school. I need products for 4th and 5th graders. Like, what do you have for me? I have ideas. We make products for early childhood education, but there is a gap in the market there because I think it's really hard to make something that's cute still cool for that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. It's funny because then once you go older again, then they think it's cool again. You know, once we hit like 10th grade.
We got to just get them past that socially awkward phase.
Exactly. Once we hit 10th grade, they're like, oh, I really like your products. That's super cool. But we don't market to kids really above, I would say, the age of 10. We say our products are designed for kids ages 3 to 10. I also think that we talk a lot about this with guidance counselors. I was training a group of middle school guidance counselors recently, and they talked about how in the privacy of their office, they would love to use these tools, specifically the weighted ones, but that they would never admit to it like outside of the office or in a group setting.
Right.
And so it's like, what do you do to give kids comfort, space, privacy so that they can have all of these things? Because middle school and older kids need this stuff just as much, if not more. But I do think there is this shift, right? We are teaching these kids even younger. So hopefully when these kids we've been teaching, when they hit those, you know, ages, that they'll be more open to it.
That's what it just reiterates how important it is to start young.
100%. So important.
Because hopefully they find ways to implement them themselves in their own time, in their own privacy as they get older.
100%.
This has been such an interesting conversation, and I just feel like I've already learned so much. I don't even think I followed my questions here. We just talked so much. But is there any like lasting like things that you would like to communicate to our listeners about like one, the importance of mindfulness, and two, just like the simple strategies of like how they can implement.
For sure. So one, I feel like I try to be honest when I say it's easy but hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what I like to leave people with. Like, it doesn't cost you anything. It's totally free. You have your breath with you, and it's good for you and your kids.
Yeah.
So what's stopping you, right? Can you find those 60, 90 seconds a day just to do it once a day?
I mean, if nothing else, you're going to benefit yourself
100%, 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about 5 deep breaths here.
Yeah.
And once you do that, where can it take you?
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I try to leave people with every day. Anytime I end a teacher training, I always say, tomorrow, I want you to go into your morning meeting. Most classrooms, have a morning meeting or a circle time. And I want you to do one technique. And then the next day, I want you to do another one. And if you can do that, it's just like that, the inertia needed to do it that first time,
mm-hmm.
and to feel confident and secure in yourself that you're going to be silly too. Because you're going to do lion's breath. You're going to put your paws up. You're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to feel like, yeah, I can do this because it's good for you and them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And once it becomes a routine, like we know those younger
100%.
age ranges just thrive on routine anyway.
They do.
So it just it just kind of helps.
Yeah.
So what about like for like the parents?
What do I want them to know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want them to know that they shouldn't tell their kids to calm down.
That's
model behavior and create the environment.
Talk to my husband about.
Yeah.
No, I think it's so important, and it's so hard not to, because as soon as you get in those dysregulation moments, you hear your parents' voice, and they told you to calm down. Right?
100% they did.
And I'm sure their parents told them to calm down.
100%. So we're not blaming them, right?
No.
This is not an attack on people older than us, but it is saying, I'm going to take a deep breath so that I don't say that to my child. I'm going to model that behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. Well, thank you for joining us today. Yeah. I think that our listeners are going to walk away with so much valuable information from this conversation. So I'm really, really glad that you were able to join us. Are there any additional resources? I mean, you talked about so many resources, but is there anything else that you would want them to look for?
Our website has the free parent class and access to the music, and our Instagram also has links to all of that.
And we'll link that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, thecalmcaterpillar.com, and we're at Instagram.calmcaterpillar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Rethink Time. Don't forget to subscribe and visit timetimer.com for supporting tools and resources. Make every moment count.